Hello, Ayurveda every day with Talya. It's Talya. Hey, so I am so excited to be here, first of all, and today I want to talk about Ayurveda for beginners. So maybe a week or two back, I asked a bunch of you in our group what kind of topics you would like me to address in Facebook Lives. And this was actually from a couple of you. So Leah Mueller Grant, she works in a school, and her question is always how to incorporate it for high school students and for her staff. So I'm going to assume that all of those people are beginners. And then Karen Strike, I believe that's how I say her last name, she was also asking about advice for beginners. And I think a lot of us in here, even if you've been looking at Ayurveda for a while, I remember when I was first learning this science, Talya, when I was first learning Ayurveda, I mean, I was obsessed with it for no less than 4 years. Everywhere I went, I was constantly looking at people and food and everything. I'm just, is it vata? Is it pitta? Is it kapha? Like, what does it mean? So, I think we stay in beginner's mind for a long time. And even now, when I go to any lecture on Ayurveda, when I read any Ayurvedic book, I learn something new. So it's really great to stay in your beginner's mind as someone who's really into this science because it is so vast. And I think I've shared that before. Like, this is a huge, vast science. And no matter how deeply you want to understand it or feel better, use it in your daily life, you've just got to take it step by step. How do you feel right now? What do you need right now? And take it from there. Hey, Kim. Hey, Courtney. Um, I do have to show you what is in the background here. It's a child's thing for the wall. I just love it so much. And the swan in Ayurvedic pulse reading is kapha. And I thought, ooh, what a good like kapha grounding symbol to have on my wall. So Ayurveda for beginners, I want to give you 3 steps, 3 tips for incorporating Ayurveda into your life. And I'm going to make it real specific to where we are in the season. So we are just finishing up summer. If you're on my email list, which you can be on at my website, talyaskitchen.com, you'll see that I sent out an email this morning about what you should eat to transition from summer to fall, because all of the seasonal transitions are actually kind of tender times, and we want to pay more attention at those times to maintaining our health and making sure that we're putting the right practices in place for moving into the season ahead with health, vitality, and strong immunity. So tip number 1, Ayurveda for beginners, and I feel like this is something you can bring into the high school and for your staff, Leah, is tip number 1 is drinking warm water. And so one thing that could be really cool, I don't know how your high school is set up, drinking warm water or drinking herbal tea throughout the day is huge, and it can actually be the game changer for somebody's health when they're really on a precipice of unwellness. So if there's a way to bring like, one of those electric teapots, but they're in, I've seen them in stainless steel, so they're still really made of good material. Bringing that into the classroom and just even making a big pot of tea or having some, a bunch of cups, everyone could have their own cup and put their name on it, especially if you get them at a thrift store and you're not wasting paper, but actually having the kids reuse their cups and making it a ritual, either in your daily life, or I'm keep bringing it back to Leah's question of being in the high school, but making it a ritual. Like, this is what I do every day before I start my day of looking at my cell phone, checking my email, calling somebody on the phone, starting business meetings. I make sure that I secure my hydration first thing in the morning with a cup of hot water or a cup of warm water or a cup of herbal tea. And, I could take this a lot farther. I don't know if I should for this particular Facebook Live, but one of the pillars of hydration, here I go. One of the pillars of hydration for fall, oh, I'm going to decline that. Somebody's calling me on Facebook. One of the primary foundations of hydration in fall is electrolytes. And electrolytes are combinations of trace minerals that, when they are all present together at once, they help your body absorb and cycle water through the body. And when you don't have enough electrolyte balance in your system, you will feel thirsty, you'll be dehydrated, you could even feel really exhausted, which is oftentimes a symptom of dehydration. And we just don't think that it would be, but I'm telling you, I've seen so many women shift the game of their health just by hydrating more deeply. So one thing that I teach in everywhere is making this drink called Soleil. So this is still kind of tip number one of drinking warm water throughout the day, but this is something you could absolutely teach anybody, is how to make a Soleil. So you take a jar of water. Usually I use an almond butter jar. Hey, Jody. An almond butter jar or peanut butter jar. It holds 2 cups of water. And then I add 2 heaping tablespoons of a really good quality salt. So I'm not talking about the sea salt that comes in a canister at Trader Joe's. I'm talking about Celtic sea salt or black Himalayan salt, fleur de sel, what else? Anything that's like kind of gray in color. Atlantic gray salt is really great, especially this time of year. The Lima salt that comes off the coast of Peru. Those are what I mean, because when you look at those salts, they're not white, they're not bleached. You can tell that they have trace minerals by their kind of off coloring. They're usually pink or gray, or just not, certainly not pure white most of the time, majority of the time. So you let that salt sit in that jar of water for 24 hours, and then you use that Soleil saltwater concentrate as a source of electrolytes. And you just put a teaspoon or two into your glass of warm water in the morning. You want to make sure you're not using stainless steel cups, because the metal will react with the minerals, and then you won't have really high quality salt anymore. You'll have table salt, sodium chloride. But if you do it in a ceramic cup or a glass jar, a glass cup, you are getting an electrolyte, and it's so cheap. It costs almost nothing. So back to Leah, who's a teacher at a high school or a staff member at a high school, you probably don't have a lot of money to put into teaching your kids Ayurveda, but you could probably afford a couple tablespoons of salt, once a month, and see how people feel. It's so thirst quenching. So anyway, that's tip number one. Tip number two, Ayurveda for beginners, is buy an Ayurvedic cookbook. Any Ayurveda cookbook. Obviously, I have written one. All of you know that I have written 3 cookbooks, but it doesn't have to be one of mine. The one that I started with was the Ayurvedic cookbook by Amadea Morningstar. I'm actually going to type it into the comments here. The Ayurvedic cookbook. Whoops, I'm spelling it wrong. By Amadea Morningstar, who I hope to interview in my next summit interview series. That is my Bible. And here's why I think it makes such a big difference. Ayurveda has 4 tiers of healing the body, mind, spirit. It starts with self-reflection, which comes from meditation, just noticing how you feel. That is the number one remedy in Ayurvedic medicine, is just noticing how you feel. Hint, this is a lead in to my tip number 3. Once you have identified how you feel cold, you feel dry, which would be you feel thirsty or you feel depleted, you feel dry skin. There's different ways you can feel it out. You feel hot, you feel wet or congested, you've got lots of phlegm, you just don't feel well, you're not functioning as well in your day, you've got like foggy brain, that's congestion. You can go to an Ayurvedic cookbook and be like, okay, I'm feeling dry. You only need to identify one feeling. I'm feeling dry. What recipe in here specifically is saying this is the antidote to dryness? It will be a recipe that increases kapha, because kapha is the dosha that represents water and earth, but specifically water. And anything that increases kapha, is going to be like, it's going to be sweet and nourishing and flowing and most of it. Okay, cheesecake is kapha increasing, and that's not necessarily what you need when you're really thirsty, although it might ground you a little bit, but I digress. Use an Ayurvedic cookbook, and hers is so easy. Like, hers is so simple. And I love that she puts throughout the book like these one pagers that talk about a particular food or food group, like about milk, about sugar, about roots. So you can really start to just learn about one thing at a time. I mean, I worship this book. It is my favorite book. In fact, I'm on my second copy because I tore through my first copy so intensely, like it fell apart at the seams. So I bought myself another one. So an Ayurvedic cookbook, and then just making one recipe once a week. One recipe once a week. You could do it on the weekend when you have more time. This is also something that you can bring into the classroom. You can pick a super easy recipe that does not require cooking or baking or frying or anything like that, that could just be done in the classroom, maybe with a blender or a knife and a bowl. Maybe it's just ingredients that you mix up. One food that I have taught in classrooms many times, so these are going to be from my cookbook, the Ayurvedic Vegan Kitchen, but the chai chocolate mousse, which you add spices to, that's a really fun recipe to teach in a classroom. All you need is a food processor. Also, my dadu's recipe, which is my most favorite cookie on the planet. That's one that you can easily make in a classroom. You could make amazing pesto chutney. Those are all such easy ones. And, you can kind of be like, hey, this is a really healthy way to have a dessert. Or did you even know that avocados could be used as a really nourishing fat for carrying the flavor of chocolate into your mouth, which what kid doesn't like that? It's going to be so few and far between. And you could even use carob powder instead of cocoa powder, just to make sure you're using something that's very, kind of low in the allergen category. So that's tip number 2, is use an Ayurvedic cookbook. Get to learn Ayurveda through taste and food, which is your number 2 practice when it comes to just using Ayurvedic medicine to heal or grow or learn. And then my tip number 3 is, you've probably already guessed it, because we need to practice self-awareness to such a degree that we need to be able to tune in and really say, like, how am I feeling right now? Meditation. And this can be done by anyone, anywhere, in any classroom, in any place. Meditation. So I've got a couple favorite apps if you need support in your meditation. One is called Headspace. I'm adding that to the comments. Love Headspace. The guy who started it is like amazing, and you should watch his TED Talk. I don't remember his last name, but his first name is Andy. I'm sure he's easy to find online. And the other one is called Insight Timer. That one is free. And there's a lot of free guided meditations on Insight Timer. There's also just literally a timer that you can program yourself for, like, okay, I'm going to meditate for 1 minute, and I'm going to have a bell go off at the end of that 1 minute. And that's as much as I can do. I think that would be so cool for high school students to meditate. I wish I had had a teacher who brought that into my life back then. And it's something the whole class can do. And what's nice with that Insight Timer is it does bring you out of meditation, not with a beeping sound or something that's really irritating and jarring to the nervous system. It brings you out with a gong or a bell or just a really beautiful, soft sound that can keep you actually in the meditative state even after the meditation has ended. And one thing that my yoga teacher says a lot is when we om, which is a type of chant, he always invites us to really have the practice be even more listening to the space between the sounds than the sound itself. So same with the meditation is when you come out of the meditation to have that still be part of the meditative practice, is that you're not then, okay, we did it, let's rush back into something. The meditation ends and you almost take like another minute or two or three to guide your students or yourself out of your meditation. That's powerful. And in our society that's moving oh so very fast, this is a Pico Iyer quote, and I'm not going to probably nail it, but what he says is, in an age of constant distraction, there is nothing so, I want to say something, nothing so vital as slowing down, nothing so vital as sitting still. And he even goes on to say there's nothing so urgent as sitting still. And, for those of you who want to practice Ayurveda as part of your everyday life, Ayurveda every day, you really have to master the art of listening to yourself, to your body, to your mind, to your emotions, to your heart. And you've also got to be willing to respond. So, the education comes in, we'll respond with what? And that's where, our group is so valuable. Ayurvedic books are so valuable, blogs and programs and all of that, which, me and a lot of other really cool people are teaching online these days. So there's lots of resources there for you to learn. It's just, you got to make the time for it. So in review, the tips are warm water. If you want to add electrolytes to it, go for it. But warm water as we make this summer to fall transition will be huge. And warmth calms down the vata dosha, which is the dosha or the elemental force that really gets out of its body and doesn't pay attention and has ADD and just is all over the place. So like I said, it's really a practice for grounding that energy. That's why I recommend you do it before you start your day. But you could start a class with it. Use an Ayurvedic cookbook, buy one cookbook at least and use it. If you haven't already downloaded it, although I think most of you have, my Ayurveda Body Love Starters Guide, which is on my website, is a great resource. You don't have to buy a book. You could get basically a free little ebook that gets you going with some recipes too. But Ayurvedic cookbooks are awesome. And number 3 is take some time to meditate, even if it's for 1 minute. And another thing you can do instead of using your phone or an app is to just buy a little bell or a little singing bowl. You can get them. You can get them at flea markets. You can get them at kind of spiritual stores that sell crystals and stuff like that. But that's a really great way to come into and out of a meditation. I love it. So I hope this was really helpful. We've just got to start with baby steps. And if you follow the steps in today's Facebook Live, you will be doing so great. So thank you so much for all the emojis that just floated through. And have a wonderful day. Ayurveda Everyday, Talya signing off.